Hello and welcome back to my channel and to another reading vlog. My main plan for this reading vlog is to continue my journey in the realm of the Elderlings, which if you haven't seen like the majority of my videos since March, I've been reading The Realm of the Elderlings, which is a 16-book series, and there's actually 5 mini-series contained within the 16 books. And I have read the first 2 trilogies in the series, so they're actually all up here. And I like vlogged my experience with most of these books, and now I am on to the 7th book and the first book in the Tawnyman trilogy, Fool's Errand. And I am so excited for this because the Tawnyman trilogy overall seems to be people's favourite series in the whole of the Realm of the Elderlings, and I loved the live ship traders like so much. I love both Farseer and the live ships, but live ships was just like an extra step up for me. So I'm a bit nervous this isn't going to be as amazing as everyone else seems to find it, but I am really excited to start this. For a basic synopsis, the first trilogy, the Farseer trilogy, follows the main character Fitz, who is the bastard son to this prince who is the king-in-waiting for the throne at the Buckkeep Palace in the 6 duchies. And he is basically brought to the doorstep by his mother's family when he's 4 years old, and the family kind of like shuns him because he is the bastard son of the prince and not like the legitimate son. And so he kind of like is raised in the shadows. He at first gets given to the stable master at this palace and is raised in the stables, but then when he's old enough he then starts to become trained to be an assassin. So the first trilogy kind of just follows his journey in his early years, and then the second trilogy is completely separate in a different part of the world following different characters. But I know it's going to tie in somehow because you do have to read that trilogy to read the third one. And yeah, I can't really go into much detail about this one because it will spoil like especially the first trilogy, but this has a time jump. We follow Fitz when he's 35, I think he is at the start of this book, and he and one of the other characters, the Fool, have to go on a quest to rescue a prince in this. That's all I know so far, but I've heard amazing things about this trilogy, especially the first and the third books, so I am just so excited to read this. It's been like 2 weeks since I finished the Ship of Destiny, the last live ship book, and all I've wanted to do is pick up this book since then. So I'm glad I'm finally picking it up. But before we properly get into the vlog, I actually have 2 exciting Bookish packages. The first is here, and I actually already opened this one. There's a lot of newspapers in it. But basically, I was looking on eBay the past few weeks trying to find the old original like first edition books for the Farseer trilogy. I finally found some that were decently priced. They're not in the best condition, but they're not dirty either. They're just a bit like worn. Yeah, I have them here. They're a bit sun damaged, but I don't really mind. These are from the 90s, so the fact that they're like still in one piece is really good. But I have the first book here, Assassin's Apprentice, and this one's probably in the best condition because it is the smallest, so there's like less bending in the spine. I really love the traditional covers. And then I have the second book, Royal Assassin. I just love these covers so much. I feel like they represent how the books feel to read more than the new editions. And this one's my favourite, Assassin's Quest. Even though it's my least favourite book to read, it's my favourite cover. But yeah, I am so excited to have these. If I'm going to reread the series, I don't think I'll read from these copies just because they are so old, but they're just really nice to have. And then I literally just got this one delivered, so I need to open this one. From what I could see of the pictures on eBay, these ones looked in better condition than the other ones. Yeah, these two actually look in quite good condition. And I'm glad I have bubble wrap because I like to sell my old books as well, and I was running out of bubble wrap, so now I have more to sell my own. This one's so well packaged. Can't believe how new these look. I have books 2 and 3 in the live ship traders in the original UK first editions. I couldn't find the first one, the Ship of Magic. It's so hard to find. I cannot find it online for a decent price. But I paid £9 for the 2 of these. So that was a bargain, to be honest. Yeah, I have the Mad Ship here, which actually is my favourite Robin Hood book so far. So I really like that I have it. Why do I have a feeling that these books were just never read? Because the spines are like even less bent than my new ones that I've read. So that's kind of crazy. And the pages are like so white for a book published in 2000. This book's older than me. I'm more war and torn than this book. And then we have Ship of Destiny, which is the third book, and this is my second favourite Robin Hood book. So it's just so nice to have them in these like cool old classic fantasy covers. Yet now I'm just missing Ship of Magic, which I need to get. But now I have 2 copies of 5 of the Realm of the Elderlings books. Finally time for me to give a reading update, because I am on page 269, so I'm just under halfway through, which might be crazy that I've not updated yet when I've read nearly halfway through like a nearly 600-page fantasy book. But the first 200-ish pages of this were like literally just catching up with the main character and Fitz having like conversations with a bunch of people who come to visit him, and I loved every second of it. I knew this series was so hyped up, and it's like most people's favourite trilogy like out of all of the mini-series in the Realm of the Elderlings, so I had quite high expectations, but so far it's meeting them. Even though nothing's really happened yet, this book is reminding me the most of Royal Assassin in terms of like, is really good, but it's mainly just Fitz having conversations with people. But the conversations are great. Basically, I'll give a little bit about the plot, but I can't give away too much. But Fitz and the Fool have to go on a kind of rescue mission to save a character who's been kidnapped or potentially run away. We don't know yet. And that plotline hasn't really kicked in yet. Fitz has only just been given the mission in the past 50 pages. The first 200 were just him chilling in his house, and I still loved it. And yeah, it's a very slow start, but I'm still loving it. Like the writing, the characters, I think I'm liking the characters even more this time round than when I first read the Farseer trilogy. I'm really loving Fitz and Night Eyes together, which I always loved them together. If you don't know who Night Eyes is, it's basically Fitz's pet wolf, but he's not really a pet, he's a companion, because Fitz has a type of magic called the wit, and he can communicate with animals, and people who have the wit like specifically bond with like one animal, mentally connected and inseparable until one of them dies basically. And yeah, Fitz in the book Royal Assassin gets Night Eyes, who's a wolf, and he like immediately bonds with him, and yeah, they're basically like brothers, and I am loving their dynamic in this so much. There was like one page in particular where Night Eyes just had me laughing out loud. One of the other characters is talking about how time has passed him by because he hasn't really done much with his life, and he says, as if life was passing you by and you were caught in a backwater with the dead fish and old sticks. And Night Eye says, you can be the dead fish and I'll be the old stick. I don't know why, it just made me laugh, because he's saying it inside Fitz's head. So he's making all these jokes and Fitz can't even react because he doesn't want to let this character know that he's bonded with the wolf. So he just kind of has to like ignore him. And then Night Eyes makes another joke inside Fitz's head, so the boy he's speaking to doesn't hear this joke. And it says that Night Eyes opened his mouth and let his tongue hang to one side. The boy smiled down at him fondly. I always think he looks like as if he's laughing when he does that. I'm just really loving this book so far. I have quite a lot of time to read tonight and I'm working late the next 2 nights, so I do want to get a decent amount more through this. I am reading it quite slowly, but I don't mind. I really want to savour my enjoyment of this because I'm loving it so much. As you saw in the last few clips, I was on Waterstones and I actually didn't buy anything because I couldn't really find anything that I wanted, and I didn't want to buy another Realm of the Elderlings book until I'm further into the series, because I have all the Tawny Man books and I have the first book in the Rainwild Chronicles, and I want to at least get to the Rainwild Chronicles before I buy any more. So I didn't want to buy any of them, and then all the other books that I'm kind of in the mood for aren't available in Waterstones. So I actually placed an online order of like 3 different books, but that won't be here until like the end of the month, so probably won't haul that in this vlog. But yeah, at least my TBR is staying down because I had a problem of buying a new book every time I went to Waterstones over the past few months. But yeah, I'm gonna get back to reading this. Reading update. I am officially like, I think 160 pages from the end. Yeah, 159 pages from the end of Fool's Errand. I was working the past 2 days, so I didn't really like update or film much, but I did read about 50 pages a day, which is good when I'm working because normally I don't really have time to do anything other than exist on the days that I work. But this book has had me so captivated that I was just like forcing myself up earlier than normal to read it before I left, because I'm absolutely loving this book. I can't remember exactly where I was last time I updated. I think it was just over 200 pages. So like kind of in the start of the second third of the book, because I would say I saw someone review this and they said that the book kind of perfectly fits into like 3 sections, and I definitely feel that way. The first one is very slow moving and basically nothing happens and you're just catching up with Fitz and learning about where he's been the past like 15 years and seeing people who he hasn't seen in decades like interact with him for the first time again. And I really like that. Like the writing's phenomenal in that bit, and just sitting with Fitz and catching up with him, it's just like so wholesome but sad and nostalgic, even though like I only read the first few books in March, so how can I be nostalgic for books I read like 3 months ago? But still, it was like putting me on my feels. And then the second third is when the plot is introduced and we go, or like the Fool's Errand is introduced, but it's still a lot of like plotting and thinking about what they're going to do, or like sussing things out. But I still really enjoy that. Like I like the intrigue, the character dynamics are still there, the writing's still really strong. And now finally in the last third is where the plot properly kicks in, and I'm also really enjoying that. I don't know if I specifically said in my last updates, but the errand that they're going on is to basically save like the new prince of the Farseer kingdom, because they don't really know what happens, they just know that he is gone. So either he's been like taken, he's went on his own, or he's been like lured. But in this last third we're now finally getting to the main thick of the plot, and I've been enjoying this throughout. Like I've enjoyed every part of this that I've read. One aspect of the magic system that this book really focuses on is the magic called the wit. Like there's 2 different types of magic in this world, the skill and the wit, and Fitz has both of these. And I'd say the skill is what was mainly focused on in the Farseer trilogy. It's basically when it's like telekinesis, like people with the skill can read people's minds and like get in their head and experience what they're experiencing and view the world from their eyes. But also if they like skill to another person who has the skill, they can like actively communicate and like control each other and just stuff like that. And I did find that interesting, but in comparison to the wit, which is where they can communicate with animals, I find the skill quite boring. Like the wit is so much more interesting to me, and maybe it's because it is so forbidden and people view it as like dirty magic. They'll literally hang, draw and quarter anyone who they think has the wit, not even like confirmed, even if they just think it, they do that because it's the only way to them that they think like the magic will disappear. So I've like always been really interested in that aspect of the magic system, but this book really focuses on that and the different kind of like groups and politics around the wit, because you have people who are like extremely against it and will like murder anyone who they think has it, but then you have people on the other end, at the other extreme, where people who do have the wit but they're like an extremist group, and then Fitz is kind of just somewhere in the middle, and I just really like that aspect of the story. One thing I will say though, as I'm going into the last 160 pages, which I plan on reading today, because I started it a week ago today and I do want to move on to something else soon. I don't want to rush it, but I'm going to savour these 160 pages, but I think it's time that I really like sit down and read a good chunk of the book, mainly because it's like the 11th of June today and I've only read one book, so I do want to speed it up a little bit. I don't think I'll have an issue with that because it is really picking up towards the end. But throughout the entirety of the book, I know something sad happens near the end. I don't know how sad. Different people view it differently. I've just seen it in like reviews of people sobbing at the end of this book. But the way people talk about it, they talk about it in a way where it wasn't like a heart-wrenching, unexpected thing. It was like kind of expected, and people say it was done really well. So basically within the first 100 pages of this, I started to get this sense of foreboding of what it was, and I think I know exactly what the sad thing is, because the main character Fitz keeps bringing it up again and again. Every few pages he just keeps mentioning how bad a certain thing is, and I'm like, okay, so that's going to happen at the end of the book. I'm going to put spoilers for this bit because whilst most of my vlogs are spoiler free, I do sometimes, especially with these books, I like to rant about things. So spoilers for the next little bit, I'll put it up on the screen. But basically the thing that I think is going to happen, which might not even be spoilers because it might not even happen, but I think his pet wolf, Night Eyes, not even pet, like his companion wolf, like the one that he's bonded to. He's been bonded to Night Eyes since he was like a boy, basically since Royal Assassin, the second book. I think Night Eyes is going to die at the end of this. Since the start of the book, Fitz has constantly mentioned how old Night Eyes is and how worried he is for him. There's like even a moment near the start of the book where Night Eyes has a scare where his heart stops because he was choking on a fish, and then like his heart just stopped and Fitz had to like revive him, and since then he's been really weakened, and then he got attacked by a cat, which is another thing that makes me worried because the cover of this book, I saw this before the attack happened, but there's basically this wild cat that's involved, and obviously the front cover is a cat attacking a wolf. So I was like, is Night Eyes going to sacrifice himself to this cat to save the other characters? Because I would be really sad about that. But yeah, every few pages it's just like Night Eyes is getting weaker and he's not keeping up with the horses and he's getting attacked and his wounds are getting infected, and yeah, I just know that it's going to be Night Eyes dying, especially because people talk about it in a way where it was kind of inevitable, the tragic thing that happens at the end of this. It wasn't unexpected and it was done well, which makes me think, yeah, it's going to be Night Eyes dying, which is going to be really sad. So I'm kind of preparing myself for that. I think I will maybe like start filming myself reading the end of this book just to see if anything happens. I don't know if I want to cry on camera, but who knows. Yeah, that's going to be into the spoilers, but yeah, I'm preparing myself for something bad happening at the end of this book, but we'll see. So yeah, my plan for the rest of the day is to read this book. Basically, I read it quite slow. Like I normally read a page in less than a minute, but at this point in this book, it's usually just slightly over a minute it takes me to read a page. The font is tiny though, like it's really small to me, and I said this when I was reading the live ship books. I said in one of my updates that I found the writing style in the live ship traders so much easier to breeze through than the Farseer books. Like the Farseer trilogy feels like it was written so much further into the past than the live ships do. And even though they're like kind of occurring around the same time, like they're in the same time period, maybe just like 10 years apart or something like that. But even going back to the Fitz books again, the writing changes again and feels so old and medieval, which I do love. But it definitely is clunkier and harder to get through. Not clunky in like a bad way, it's more just like it is written in a different style. So that's why sometimes it takes me a bit longer. But anyways, I'm going to get on with this because I feel like I've ranted for like over 9 minutes now. Happy that I was right about a theory to do with like why the prince left, and there was like something that was kind of briefly mentioned at the start of the book to do with like the magic, and I thought that that had to come back somehow, so I then like thought that that was what was happening with the prince, and turns out I was right. I'm not going to go into detail more than that because I don't want to spoil anything, but it feels good to be right about something. Genuinely, this is the most tension I've felt reading a Robin Hobb book. Like, it's stressing me out. It's not looking good. The thing I thought was going to happen just happened. Yeah. I don't even know if I want to read any more tonight. I have 47 pages left. It's like 3 chapters. I know I wanted to finish it today, but I don't know if I can. That was like really well done. Like I knew it was coming from like 100 pages in, probably before that. But it's so sad. I literally remember saying to myself before I started this that I wanted to be as emotionally impacted by it as other people, because I'd seen other people react to it, and even though I didn't know what it was about, like I didn't know what the sad thing was, I was like, oh, I hope I get like emotionally invested enough to feel the way they're feeling. Now I don't know if I want that because it's so sad. I think this is the most I've cried at a book in years. Like I cried at the book Daughter of the Forest, which I read in May last year, but it was like a little bit, and it wasn't like overly sad, it was like slightly sad, whereas this is like the most painful thing I've read in the realm of the Elderlings so far, which is saying a lot. There's definitely darker things that have happened, but this is the one that's like stabbed me in the heart the most. Yeah. So as you can see, it's the next day and finally finished Fool's Errand. I couldn't finish it last night. After the chapter that I read, I just couldn't think about picking it up again. I tried and then I was like just crying anytime I tried to read it. So I then watched I rewatched an episode of Severance to comfort myself, which Severance also makes me cry, so I don't know why I did that. But I woke up this morning and I was like, oh, I'll feel refreshed and I'll feel fine to read the last 50 pages. Still teared up in the last 50 pages. I just made myself a nice coffee, so it's getting me through this. But yeah, this book, I don't even know where to begin summarising my thoughts. This is definitely my favourite Realm of the Elderlings book so far, and it's also a new favourite book of all time. Like I cannot tell you the last time I felt this moved by a book. I don't think there was a single chapter in this that I was bored at all. Like this is 584 pages. It's like 30 chapters and not a single one of them had me like bored or wanting to move on to the next thing. I was just like present with every single moment of this book, and that's kind of the theme of the book as well, is not to dwell on the past but also not to worry about the future. It's like being in the present, and that's how I felt while I was reading this book. I was just so invested in it, and I don't know how anything is going to top this, to be honest. And I've seen some people rank the books in this series, and actually quite often this book is near the top, if not at the top, which I'm not surprised about at all. This book just felt so grand, but also so like insular at the same time. It was like, I don't know how to describe it. It's not world-ending stakes, but Robin Hood makes you feel like they are. I also don't think I loved or cared about the characters as much as I do now. Like, the tragic thing that happened at the end of this, if that happened in any of the other books, I honestly wouldn't have really cared. But for some reason in this book, it devastated me, and I just like, I could reread the page over and over again and I would cry every time. I think I was just so moved by how it was done. I also really love the magic in this and how much we focus on the wit and like the politics of it. That's something I've always been really interested in, so the fact that it's basically a whole book about that was really intriguing. I felt proud of myself for predicting what kind of happened to one of the characters or how they ended up the way that they are. It was just like a nice callback to something that we learned at the start of the book that I knew had to be relevant at some point. But yeah, I don't know how much more I can say about this book that isn't just me gushing or crying about it. I am so excited to read the next 2 books in the series. I've heard the middle book, Golden Fool, nothing really happens in it, but apparently there's just like a lot of like character development and emotional moments. And because I'm so invested in the characters at this point, I don't really think I'll mind that much the fact it's like 700 pages of nothing. But yeah, that is my thoughts on Fool's Errand. I'm hoping to get to the next 2 books in the trilogy in June, but we're already like over a third of the way through, and yeah, I've only just finished the first, and the first is the smallest by far, so a bit nervous about that. I think I'm going to take a break and read one book in between all the books in the trilogy, but I think I'm just going to pick a short one so I can get to the second book because I really want to continue in the series. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you've read this book and what your thoughts are, or if you're reading this series, where are you in the series? I just love talking about this series so much. I think a part of my enjoyment is just how many people seem to be reading it at the same time as me. Like, basically on all the platforms I'm on, like BookTube, Bookstagram, and on Book Talk as well, there's like someone I know that's reading the series, so I'm just like talking to multiple different people, multiple different platforms about it, and it's just like making me more invested. So yeah, and that's why I make these videos. It's like not for any sort of money, like I don't get any money from this, or like the views either. Like clearly I get like 100 to 200 views, but I just love the little like community moments like this, and it's like a nice video diary for me to look back on, and also just like helps me enjoy the books more as well. So yeah, but anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video and I'll see you in the next one.